Okay, so 2 o'clock sharp. Hi, Nina. Thank you for being here.
Hi,
Hello,
Arnon.
everyone.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here. Thank you, everyone that is watching right now, and thank you for being here. I hope all of you are safe and sound with your family and loved ones during this time. And we're going to uh, start this presentation, how to stay in business and what to do next in this series that uh, we are doing. So a little bit of an agenda here, and I want to welcome my guest speaker today, Nina Garcia from the Toronto Board of Trade. And Nina has an amazing bio. I'm sure you guys can check her out later on her LinkedIn. So we're thrilled to have you here and share some ideas and thoughts during this time. So thank you, Nina, and welcome.
Thanks again. It's really my pleasure to be here and to have this chat with you and with everyone that's listening.
Great. We're so happy. Uh, so we're just going to move along because there is a lot of interesting stuff to cover today. So a little bit about Mellowhawk. We are an international logistics provider, and we're based in Toronto with warehouses across Canada and with an office in Miami, which covers the whole U.S. And for those who don't know, we do air, ocean, trucking, project cargo, and customs clearances in North America and all over the world. So that's a little bit what we do. A little bit of an overview that I always start this web series just to bring people up to date what's happening in North America and around the world, news that impacts supply chain in general. And the first one will start with the air update. We heard major issues with major airlines all over the world. British Airways announcing the job cuts in the amount of 12,000 jobs are going to be lost in one quarter of their workforce. Delta Airlines as well, predicting losses of $534 million. Which is devastating, of course, as you can imagine, as passenger flights are not allowed anywhere. Airlines are struggling a lot with this pandemic, and also supply chain is struggling. So it's very, very difficult. In United Airlines, it's even worse with $2.2 billion in losses in the first quarter. So as you can see, things don't look good for all the major airlines that still to this moment have a few flights going to some destinations. Also on the Air Canada side, Air Canada is cutting down their hours of operations across Canada. Except for Toronto and Montreal, they remain open. Toronto is basically a 24-hour operation here, but across Canada, they're cutting down from 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. Again, I think related to volume and also employee hours. And IATA has announced a report of the major losses worldwide with the volume of cargo operations down 25% worldwide, which is a huge drop in cargo movement. Another update in the US is FMC, Federal Maritime Commission, announced that they're putting a rule or trying to put a regulation where demurrage and detention on containers, customers shouldn't be penalized if the delay in removing containers from the port is not really caused by a client or just because the client didn't want to pick up the container, offload the container, but it's caused due to COVID. So there is a new a rule that they want to introduce to ease up penalties on demurrage and detention on containers in the US. Also, all the largest steamship lines are predicting huge losses in this first quarter. Of course, as you know, the delay in China caused delays in container movement and the rotation of these containers worldwide. So now we see a lot of containers that are not in position where they should be, or they're being delayed in transiting points around the globe, causing a backlog. And also, if somebody wants to export from a different market than China, there is no equipment sometimes in those markets. So clients are finding it difficult to load containers at the speed that we used to have prior to COVID. On the Canada side, as we all imagine, Canada is facing its worst recession ever. And there's hopes for a turnaround of this, of course, in the months to come. And we're trying to be positive. Also, the Canadian Chamber and Stats Canada did a survey that showed that, companies are struggling to maintain their flow of operations here. Of course, the losses of jobs, the pressure, working from home, and the survey is available on the Chamber of Commerce press release site as well, if you want to check it out. Also, PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey to 305 CFOs to talk about the impact of COVID. And there is major supply chain concerns are waning on CFOs, gain clarity on what to expect in the short term and what kind of changes are necessary to weather shocks like the COVID. Also, this survey showed that once COVID is over, 56% of the companies surveyed, they said they're going to look for other sources of material while what they're doing before the COVID. So they're looking for alternative of sources because they don't want to run into a situation like we had where everything was coming from a particular region and now it was disrupted because of COVID. So they want to look for local markets or markets that are close to their production facilities to ease up on the supply chain bottleneck. Okay, so this is my little bit of insight. And now I'm going to turn over to Nina to talk a little bit about her position and the Board of Trade's position here in Toronto. So welcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Arnon, and thank you so much for that information. Those updates. I think it's really important for us to stay up to date on some of those latest trends. Some things are changing so quickly, I would say by the day, but sometimes it's even by the hour. So thank you so much for that overview. So yeah, very excited to be here today and talk to you a little bit more about what the Toronto Region Board of Trade has been doing in terms of supporting businesses during this crisis. And then very much happy to jump into a conversation with you, Arnon, about what we've been hearing in terms of some of the pain points, looking at some of the success stories, and also trying to talk a little bit about some of the trends for the future. So yeah, happy to kick it off with a brief introduction about the Toronto Region Board of Trade. So essentially, the Toronto Region Board of Trade is one of the oldest and largest chambers of commerce in Canada. We actually celebrated our 175th year anniversary earlier this year. And really what we strive for is to make Toronto one of the most competitive and sought after places to do business in the world. And really our mission is to be a catalyst for a globally competitive Toronto. So as you'll see in the next slide, you can have the next slide.
Yes, I am controlling the slide. Sorry. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are over 170 years old institution, and we work very much at the nexus of the business community, between the business community and very much in partnership with government representatives at all three different levels. So the board is a members-based organization. We have over 13,000 different members of all sizes, really ranging from SMEs all the way to more established corporations, and really across all different sectors. And we really focus our policy and advocacy work on three strategic pillars, which is what you'll see in this image here on the right. So the first pillar being talent. In other words, really working on the attraction and retention of talent for the Toronto region. The second one being transportation, so really focusing on improving that movement of goods, services, and people across the region. And the third pillar being trade. And so for trade, that leads me to the next slide. because that's really the reason why the World Trade Center Toronto was established in 2017. I don't know if we can get the next slide. Thank you. Perfect. So yeah, as I said, so the World Trade Center Toronto is really the board's trade services arm, and it really runs a series of trade enabling programs that are meant to support Canadian companies in their trade journey. So in the next slide, we can see a little bit more about what some of the programs that the World Trade Center Toronto offers. If I can have the next slide, please. Thank you.
Oops.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Perfect. So these are some, sorry, I should say these are all of the programs that we have within the World Trade Center Toronto. So the first one is the Institute, which leads a series of specialized workshops on specific topics. So for example, earlier this year, we had a workshop focusing on the new Incoterms 2020, for example. Then our next program over is our Trade Accelerator program, also known as TAP. And this one has been rolled out all across Ontario and actually all across Canada a couple of years ago. And what TAP does is it works with Canadian companies to help them put together their international export plan and help them craft an international strategy. Following that, we have our market activation program, also known as MAP. And that's actually the program that I focus on. And MAP, what it does is we lead a series of experiential outbound trade missions to a number of different markets around the world in our strategic priority sectors. So essentially running outbound trade missions for Canadian companies. And so while TAP and MAP really focus on outbound, so working with Canadian companies that are looking to go abroad, the following program, which is the Trade and Investment Services Office, that really focuses on inbound. So working with international delegations, or receiving, I should say, international delegations that are looking to learn a bit more about the opportunities here in Toronto. And last but certainly not least, we have our Scale Up Institute here at the World Trade Center Toronto, which was launched last year. And that program really focuses on working with companies that are looking to overcome barriers to their continued growth. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell in terms of what the Toronto Region Board of Trade does and the World Trade Center does. But I do have to add a disclaimer that these are the programs and this is what we do in normal times. And I know that today that looks quite different.
Correct. Well, it's amazing to see what the Board of Trade can offer. I mean, I knew a lot of the programs within that because we are members and so forth, but this is amazing because if somebody that doesn't know anything about exports or imports can go to you, and I'm sure you can guide them and what they can do, like to start.
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on what step of their trade journey or their exporting journey they're at. We can certainly help them navigate that.
And I'm sure you work with other Canadian programs as well, like EDC. I mean, there's a lot of collaboration between all these organizations that support and finance even Canadian exporters and their product.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're a really close community of organizations and institutions working and promoting international trade. So we work very much in partnership with EDC, BDC, as well as I said, government representatives, so the Trade Commissioner Services, both here in Canada, but also those located in other markets around the world, as well as the province and then the City of Toronto, of course. Those are some of our main partners.
Amazing, great. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next slide here. Business continuity.
Yeah, perfect. Support. Sorry?
No, and support. I was reading the slide, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I just mentioned, all of those programs and what I was talking about is really what we do in normal times. And again, we know that this is very different nowadays. We're living in quite the unprecedented situation right now, and so we've all had to really pivot and adapt ourselves to the circumstances quite quickly. So whether that means working remotely from home, and I know that's part of what we're doing here at the board. I mean, clearly, as you can see, we're on week 7 already, but who's counting anyway? But in all seriousness, really, so the Toronto Region Board of Trade has really pivoted all of its programming and activities towards supporting the Toronto region businesses and focusing on business continuity. So we've heard a really clear message from businesses that they need help in a number of different ways. So just wanted to mention some of the initiatives that we've been working on to focus on that business continuity aspect. So the first one was that we started conducting biweekly business insights questionnaires. So really going directly to the business community, to the businesses themselves, to hear what has been impacting them the most, which areas do they need the most help with, and so on and so forth. And from this, we quickly understood, I think, from our very first business questionnaire, that one of the main concerns was a kind of lack of clarity around some of the programs and some of the measures that were being put in place. So this has led us to the second point, which is that we created a one-stop digital portal on our website, compiling all of this information and support that companies need, which we've done in partnership with the City of Toronto.
Amazing. Wow.
Yes, it's actually quite comprehensive because aside from just compiling all this information, we also have a live chat button there, so companies can go there directly and ask their questions. I would actually encourage any businesses that are listening right now, if you have any questions about specific programs, whether it's in terms of eligibility or you know, what's been adjusted, because some things are really changing. You know, new programs are
Daily.
coming out every other day, and adjustments are being made every other day. So so you can really find some of that information
Oh,
there.
I know we're here on the 24-hour clock. Everything changes every 24 hours. So you have to be on top and updating not only your website, but everything that you talk about, because tomorrow is a different reality, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, so that's one of the main functions of the portal. So just staying up to date. We have a fully dedicated team for that. So so really, you can get any questions answered there. And in terms of a couple of the other things that we've been doing, of course, like many other organizations, we've really moved or pivoted all of our physical events online, so virtual events. Of course, we've put a pause on our normal programming, really to focus only and 100% on our business continuity series. So we've been doing a series of webinars and webcasts, both with public sector and private sector representatives to help fill in the gaps and answer some of these questions. So last week, for example, we had Minister Vic Fideli, which is the Ontario Minister for Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, to answer some of the questions. And then we've also been zooming into a few sectors that are popping up as some of the main opportunities. So for example, this week we had a webinar focused on opportunities in e-commerce, for example. And it's quite a lot. Yeah, it's been keeping us busy for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And which is so good, because everyone is working from home, and it's one of the topics I want to talk to you about. This
Absolutely.
is such, people change their format to help mobility on everyone, and you can be anywhere and be working and be productive and learning, of course.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the positive shifts, or one of the shifts that's definitely here to stay, is this part that has been propelled from everything that's going on, you know, working from home, and all of these new technologies that we've had to adapt. It's really pushed forward all of the organization's digital transformation strategy. So that's something that's absolutely, I think, is here to stay.
Fantastic. Okay, next.
Yep, actually, so still on that one, I just did want to mention there were a couple of programs here that I highlighted. I'm not going to go into details about them. I just wanted to highlight really the main ones that have come up on our frequently asked questions, again on our portal. There are around 20 different programs, so so again, not going to spend some time on that, but these are the four main ones from the federal government side. And then the last one that I wanted to also include is the Ontario Together Fund, which was an initiative by the province. Essentially, it's a call for proposal that they put up that was announced about 4 weeks ago, for businesses that have any supplies or specific solutions or ideas that they can put forward to help during this time. And one last thing that I forgot to mention about the portal that we have on our website, it's not just public sector initiatives and measures that are there. We've also compiled private sector initiatives to help Canadian companies as well, because we've seen a lot of well-established corporations really taking that the next step to help SMEs. So just wanted to add that there as well.
So a great deal of focus on SMEs, of course, across the board, because we know that they maneuver a lot of the business that we see here and globally. I mean, most people don't know that, but a lot of SMEs are the driving force sometimes of initiatives and new businesses.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that SMEs are really the backbone of the economy, and really they've been the hardest hit. So this everything to do with business continuity has been really focused towards SMEs. Of course, I mean, big and small corporations as well can have access to some of these programs, and of course are looking for information. But yeah, there is a strong focus on the need to help these SMEs survive through this.
And that's one of the surveys that Pricewaterhouse put together, is that people are going to start looking for different sources for their product, hopefully closer. And I think that's going to drive business closer to home, you know, instead of like, no, I need to produce in this particular country. And now in this crisis where products cannot arrive as fast as they want, so they're looking for people that have the same talent or can produce the same product closer to home. So I think that's, in a way, there is a positive outcome to everything that is so tragic, of course.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I included a little bit more information on this slide and the next slide about some of these government measures. But to be honest, Arnon, I think I'm not going to spend too much time on them.
Perfect.
I think the idea there is to have those on the slide for when companies want to have access to this, or when they get access to this presentation or to this.
I was just going to say that we put it here because we're going to be sharing this presentation with everyone that registered, right? So they can look with time on these two slides that you put together, but really valuable information with the links and data, which is so relevant to this presentation. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, those two tables were put together by a colleague of mine. She did a presentation on some of these measures earlier this week, and having them like this laid out on tables, it just visually it was so easy to understand that I asked her if I could borrow it for this.
Amazing. Okay, I'll move on to the next one here, which is the same idea on capital and liquidity, and also people can look better later on when they have time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So as I said, you know, setting the stage for what we've been doing in terms of helping companies in terms of navigating this current crisis and during this business continuity phase, I did want to stress, as I mentioned, that we've been really reaching out to the business community, getting their feedback. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the pain points? So just wanted to discuss some of what we've heard, really. So either through our questionnaires or through direct outreach. First are the pain points, as I mentioned, but then also turning it into more positive note and talking about some of the success cases. So here I just highlighted a few of the main ideas that came out of our very first business questionnaire, I believe. So 4 key pain points that came up. The first one was commercial rent relief. This one was a very, very big one, or has been a big one since the very beginning. It's repeatedly one of the main issues that businesses, I would say even small and large, have been facing. And actually, just last week, there was one of the government measures that was announced exactly a week ago. Actually, last Friday was exactly to tackle this main pain point. So as I said, it was launched just a week ago. So I really expect, or we expect to see some adjustments, but at least it's one step towards addressing that critical pain point for a lot of these businesses. The second one was really challenges with working remotely, and I know you touched on that a little bit. I mean, first of all, not everyone was able to or is able to make that shift so quickly. And of those who were able to or who can, having a fully remote team does also present some challenges in terms of getting, getting projects on track or keeping your workforce motivated. But I would say that we're all adapting very, very quickly. And I mean, it's great to have technologies such as Zoom to help us out. I think we're all gonna come out of this as IT specialists, I would say, and that's a that's a bit of a positive thing there.
Trying every
Um,
technology available ever, right, to work
yes,
remotely, which is so interesting. I love technology, so it's been a new learning curve for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. And so the third main pain point was really in terms of supply chain disruptions, and I think you know this better than I do. But of course, with so many businesses, not only here in Canada but also overseas going into lockdown,
Yeah.
basically very, very fast. There have been a lot of delays and a lot of unpredictability related to shipments. I know costs have gone up as well. And again, as I said at the beginning, these are the kinds of things that are changing by the hour even. So as I said, you know this better than I do.
Yeah. No, yeah, we see it, and some people don't realize how much supply chain affects everything that we do on a daily basis until you don't have a product in the shelf in the supermarket, and you start asking, well, how come it's not here, right? So it's,
Mhm.
but everything that we do is affected for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing was something I mentioned at the beginning was a lack of clarity around some of the relief programs, and this is what led us to put together that portal that I said. So these are some of the pain points, and I know of course it's a challenging times for a lot of businesses, but at the same time, there are some positive things that we can come out of this. And so in the next slide, I highlighted a few. Um, Positive cases, success cases, if you will, or success stories, stories of business resiliency that we've been hearing from this. It's been really great to see how some companies have been able to turn this crisis into an opportunity. As cliche as that sounds, that's really, really the truth. And after all, small businesses and entrepreneurs are nothing if not innovative. So it's really been great to see. So just wanted to highlight two types of success stories that we've been seeing. Um, you know, One of them specifically related to how businesses have pivoted their uh, their their businesses. Really, we've seen examples of manufacturers that have shifted their production towards producing face shields for frontline workers, for example. I've personally spoken with one of our companies, which is a distillery that really focused or shifted its focus from producing alcohol and gin to hand sanitizers now. Um, One of the urban planning companies that we've worked very closely with and that we've taken on our trade missions before was able to use this sort of new normal to put together and kind of build a momentum in a new plan and proposal that they put together and on how better to use sidewalks, how better to use streets, and it's really gained momentum during this new era of social distancing, for example. So those are some of the cases that we've seen of businesses that have been able to pivot. And then another message that we've seen, which was really positive, is seeing how there's been a very strong sense of community right now. So small businesses really banding together to support each other, sharing information, sharing advice. I did want to share a story actually from one of the companies that I've been talking to last week. Was that amongst these challenges, it's really led her to focus on co-opetition, so a mix of cooperation with competition. So this company, yeah, I thought it was
I like it.
fantastic,
So cute.
co-opetition.
Yeah.
So this software company basically, was started working together with one of her competitors who was about to essentially go under. So she decided to, or she agreed to help him out and subcontract some of his employees just to keep them in business, because at the end of the day, it's a loss to the entire ecosystem if her competitor goes under. So I thought that was a really interesting story to highlight. Yeah.
And I have a couple of questions for you before we move, because I think it kind of brings it to this topic and everything that we're talking about. Do you see a change in Canadian companies' perspective in terms of sourcing and exploring other markets. I know from my own experience, a lot of our clients were very safe when, sometimes they wanted to invest in South America, and I would always hear, oh my God, Brazil speaks Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese. I'm afraid of the market. I'm afraid of South America. I'm very safe here. So do you think this COVID situation has changed the minds of Canadian companies that are going to explore other markets now and look for a diverse
Mm-hmm.
customer base? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, I completely agree with you what you said at the beginning in terms of I would say that Canadian companies have always been very much risk averse. So we do that, and that is part of our mission, to encourage Canadian companies to export more, to explore international opportunities, because there's such a small percentage of Canadian companies that export, and of those that do, they really mostly look to the US, which I
Yeah,
understand it's a lot
safe.
easier and safer,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, there are so many opportunities out there. I mean, I do think it's going to be a little bit harder. We don't really know what the new normal is going to look like, but I think some of the companies that were traditionally looking to export or already exporting, maybe they're going to be taking a step back a little bit to first regain their ground, regain their own market, and then taking that leap. That being said, I think some of the companies that had already been looking to other markets, they're really eager to get back into it. I really see that because things were disrupted or interrupted so abruptly that a lot of plans that were unfolding were really put on pause. So that reminds me of a beverage company that we've been working with, which had been targeting Mexico, and she had already a deal signed up there with a retailer and a distributor, and everything was ready to go, and then everything kind of hit, and so things have been put on pause or things have been postponed. So companies like that are really eager to get back into it. I really do see that eagerness, which is which is motivating, really. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to look at what this new normal is going to be. But that's really what we're here for, organizations such as ours, but others as well. You mentioned EDC, the Trade Commissioner Services, and others. We're here to help Canadian companies in taking those steps.
And yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. Also, we've talked a little bit about this. So what do you think is going to be in the future of working from home? Do you have feedback? Because for us, again, bring an example to us, we adapted so easily on half of our staff being home and being remote, and productivity continued and actually improved in some areas. Our staff are amazing. They do a great job. But we find that we thought, oh my God, how we're going to adapt to this. And eventually it was like, wow, we're doing exactly the same as we're doing if we were all together here. Of course, we miss the teamwork. We miss being close to each other and, having our birthdays together and all of that. So how do you perceive this in the future of working from home?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, and I agree. I think we have the same feeling in the sense where if anything, it seems working from home, we've been working even harder. It's not only that 9 to 5. Sometimes it's hard
No.
to kind of cut that off,
Yeah.
and then of course definitely miss having those touch points with colleagues. Tapping someone on the shoulder and being like, oh hey, what do you think about this or that? But I do think that it potentially will be the new normal for a lot of places. I think what this has shown us is that it is possible to work from home. I think if we had talked about this a year ago, that half of the workforce or most of the workforce would be working from home, people would have thought that's crazy, that's impossible. And what
Okay.
this has shown us that absolutely it is possible. We've really been able to adapt very quickly to this. And again, going back to the use of technologies, it's really accelerated that digital transformation within companies that have been able to push towards using new technologies. And if anything, that just helps make businesses more efficient, more effective. So it is something that I think may be here to stay. I mean, there are positive there are other positive spillovers to that. Economically speaking, for example, companies that are realizing now that they can have most of their workforce, if not all of their workforce, working from home, then that means, why would I have to have a space
Impose.
in downtown Toronto, be paying,
Correct.
crazy fees,
Crazy.
having my employees commuting for sometimes half an hour, whatnot, when they could be spending that time in other ways. So it's interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of businesses, it can be here to stay.
Yeah, and also another thing that brings to this topic of being remote is a paperless economy as well, that you can move. We are learning so much now we don't need to print stuff, right? We can have our electronic files saved on a cloud and things. And I think this would drive people to this type of savings. What do you think
Mhm.
about that?
Absolutely. I think that is definitely a positive spillover effect, the paperless economy. Again, I think some industry or some sectors of the industry that were really uh, pushed back against this, or not pushed back, but that had initially thought that it's impossible. Now they're seeing that it is possible. If you think about how some sectors operate, where you need to get something printed, you need to go somewhere to get it signed, or you need to go somewhere else to get it
Correct.
stamped, and then you need to go to the other person to get it, notarized. Think
Yeah.
about all of that and all the time wasted in that. And if you eliminate some of that, it's essentially eliminating bureaucracy, and it's essentially making things more efficient, really.
Correct. In Canada, in terms of supply chain, we have been very blessed with a Canadian customs system that we clear things. Everything is electronic transmission, and we clear
Wow.
goods across borders with no paper. It has been
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time. Very few instances where I need to actually walk in with a piece of paper stamped in blue ink with a customs officer. And even that now, things that are required a piece of paper are being scanned and approved electronically by an email function with an officer at a border because of this crisis,
Mm-hmm.
because people cannot just go, and deliver. So there's so many adaptations of this system that are coming into place, not only on a day-to-day, but on government agencies like customs clearance, for example, that is so crucial, that is being adapted for validation. So it's
Mm-hmm.
becoming easier. So it's really, I think it's a really good way that this caused this to happen. So
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic to hear that that Canada is ahead of the curve in that sense.
yeah,
I can't imagine many other countries have that,
no.
but again, hopefully that is a
when I
spillover effect.
when I tell that story to my Brazilian colleagues and they go, okay, so what else? I said, no, there is nothing else. This is it. And he goes, oh my God, in Brazil you need, 5 days and 5 levels of clearances and taxes, and it's so much more complex. And different countries are very complex, and you need original documents and all of that. So Canada has been ahead of the curve for a long time, and I think it's bettering itself during this crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know we have another slide that we want to show because I have a couple of more questions for you. So if we're finished with this one, can I move to the next?
Yeah, well, this one I just wanted to quickly add. I mean, here it just highlighted two examples of what we've been
Yes,
doing in
sorry.
terms of. No, no, no problem. I know this is very much a chat, so
Yeah.
so here just wanted to really quickly highlight two initiatives that we've been doing. So the one on the right, I don't know if I mentioned, but basically, essentially, my own role in terms of managing relations with our companies and industry
Yes.
relations. I've really been going out into talking to companies every day, seeing how they're doing. So very early on, about 6-7 weeks ago, within our team, we started this social media series just to profile some of our companies, give them a boost, a business boost. So
Yeah.
so just wanted to highlight that there. And then on the left, we have through our portal, we've also started to do a series of interviews with businesses, just to share some of the resilience stories, share some advice from
Great.
company to company. So just wanted to point those two out.
No, I think it's amazing what has come out of all of this, and that's why we're doing this series, is to share knowledge and bring to the front the reality of right now, right? So when you speak to a customer that tells you a story about a problem or a success, you
Mm-hmm.
get that model and you share with other people and they learn from it. And I think that's the beauty of technology, that you have this facility to share.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all about business. It's about supporting each other at a time that is so difficult for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And these are great initiatives. And social media today, as you know, Instagram is booming with IGTV, which we're learning about it to also promote. But yeah, no, great. And I'm gonna for sure look at these cases on your website as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I love the sense of business community that it's been generating. It's really fantastic, and it's definitely through times like these that make it even more important.
Exactly. Um, and then we have this, the trends and opportunities, I guess, and everybody's keen to hear this, of course.
Yeah, of course. So this is a little bit of based on what we were chatting about
Yeah.
yesterday, thinking about some of the most impacted and least impacted industries. And this is a slide that another colleague of mine put together based on some research that he did, and it just illustrated this point perfectly. So he let me borrow this as well. Basically, as we can see, some of the industries that have been the most impacted in terms of profitability and short-term liquidity on the top right of this quadrant. Really no surprise there to see tourism and travel and airlines and aerospace right up there, just with all the
Yes.
closures related to travel. We don't know when that's going to open up again. So very much heavily impacted, as well as retailers with all the stores being closed. Again, not really knowing when that's going to open up. That's really been the most impacted. Um, but we can really focus a little bit more on the lower left quadrant and look at some of the ones that have been least impacted. So again, no surprise to see there pharma and medtech with all of the demand for medical devices, medical equipments, innovations in the medical field, really. So a lot of advancements within health tech and med tech that go hand in hand with some other technologies such as AI, for example.
Yes.
One that I really wanted to highlight is definitely e-commerce. I think that's definitely a big winner industry.
Huge.
As we see retailers, for example, taking a big hit, e-commerce, on the other hand, is really on the rise. So I know that we work a lot with food and beverage companies. So those food and beverage companies that have put together an e-commerce strategy prior to this, they're doing fairly well, and those that hadn't are quickly moving towards getting that together. And that reminds me of another example of really that community banding together. One of our tea companies that had shifted from a brick and mortar shop to e-commerce about a year ago. They took to social media to share with other companies some of the strategy behind that, how they did that, and really open to sharing that with similar companies. So that was really interesting. And here, just to quickly highlight some of the orange industries are the ones that are our priority sectors within the market activation program. So when we do our trade missions, this is really where we focus. These are our priority sectors. Yeah.
Amazing. I love this chart because some stuff is obvious, of course, as we see the reality of COVID, but others, people don't realize how much they've been affected and what's the opportunities, right? Because there's always opportunities in a time of crisis. You need to rethink your model, like you said, e-commerce or pick up a side curb pickup where people order, the stores are not open, but they'll bring you the goods, and people adapt. You have to adapt, and you have to create new models, and that brings potential new business as well for you.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I know we're going to have a couple of questions here, and I think we do have a couple of questions. And also, I want to remind everyone, if somebody can please, or not somebody, but all of you can fill out our survey. Diego posted on our chat, and we're going to leave the webinar open. The last time we closed it too soon, so if people can contribute and fill out the survey, that will be really helpful. So we have
Perfect.
a couple of questions here. Let's see who's going to be first.
One of the things, Arnon, if I may, just
Sure,
wanted
of
to
course
add
you
on
can
on
add.
this
Yeah,
slide is talking about some of these trends and opportunities in some of these industries. Really, really has led us to think a little bit more about the future of international trade and what that looks like. There's no doubt that this pandemic has and will continue to cause a real big shock within international trade. We saw some stats this past weekend that the WTO had announced or had forecasts that trade flows were going to decline between 13 to 32% in 2020. But that being said, I think this leads back to what we were talking about before. I think Canada is still very much a trading nation, and Canadian companies that are looking to grow and keep growing their target base really are going to still be looking outside of the borders. That's just going to become or still be a reality very much.
Yeah, no, yeah, my God, that's insane. So we have a couple of questions here. One, I think is for me. How much did logistics business fall in the last 2 months compared to the volume of same last year? 50 to 25. I'm going to say 25%, because remember, containers continue to move even during the crisis of COVID, where there were no flights going worldwide, but ocean shipments were moving at a slower pace or less capacity, but they were moving and they continue to move. We're finding a crunch now because of the lack of equipment in some markets, and we hopefully that's going to change very soon as, again, things start to open up and containers are offloaded. So I'm going to say 25% average that has fall down. And how long does it take to recover logistics business? Again, 6 months, 1 year. Very hard to say because logistics depends on clients, on production. So, I mean, as I said, ocean continues to move. We are busy. We're very busy. We're still moving our clients' cargo all over the world. Of course, finding new alternatives on cargo planes, freighter service, not passenger. Ocean lines have delayed some of their schedules, but things are still going. So hopefully, knock on wood, maybe it's not going to be even 6 months to recover, but I'm being very optimistic, of course. But we have a different reality, and I tell everyone to really plan ahead. If before there was a lot of planning in supply chain, now more than ever. So talk to your logistics provider, watch the news or watch industry related reports because they are really up to date, like the Board of Trade, of course, has it. Talk to your shipping companies because they are the front line of news in terms of supply chain. By the time you get the news on CBC News, for example, a lot has happened the week before. So communication now is crucial. And another question for Nina is, what is the first step to take to get the support of the Toronto region Board of Trade to boost my business? So what people should do if they want your help or advice, what they should do first?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends what kind of help and advice that you're looking for. So right now, if it relates to anything COVID-19 going on or how it's affected your business, if you're looking for help in that regards, the first step would be to check out our portal to see if there's any depending on what you're looking for, you can use our live chat button to talk to someone about some of these government measures or look through some of the advice or some of the information that we've been posting there. It also depends if you're looking for if you're an exporter, if you're looking to start or continue your exporting journey, then with the World Trade Center Toronto, amongst one of our 5 programs that I highlighted there, there's definitely a number of ways we can help you in either crafting that export plan or even getting some basic information about some of these markets that you may be looking at, or perhaps it's about how do I get into a specific market, that we can help in that regards as well. So it really depends on what kind of help you're looking for. But definitely there's a lot of information there on our website, and of course I'm happy to chat with anyone who has specific questions as it relates to one topic or the other after this webinar.
And Nina, just to make sure, no business is too small business, right? So anybody can call the Board of Trade in any level of development they have. I guess they're starting, they're already in business for a few years, or they're very advanced. So there's different levels of advice that the board and you can give to these companies.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All the way from micro businesses that may have just one or two employees, all the way to very large established corporations. So there's always something there. And as I said, the Toronto Region Board of Trade is also a members-based organization. So we have different committees that you can get involved in different ways that we can help your business grow within the Toronto region.
Great. Okay. So we have a little summary here because we're coming, to an end. I don't know if anybody has any more questions while we do this summary. So of course, we're moving to a paperless economy. As you said, strong e-commerce as we see that grow, of course, due to business being closed. Um, Sudden supply chain disruption continues, as we can see, but things are still moving. We need a greater sense of cooperation. We talked about that and how important it is to come together and ask for advice or support one another. Seek community support. Of course, all these organizations in Canada, we're so blessed that Canada has so many programs to help. If you're working from home, if you're a big corporation, mid corporation, you can get help in any level.
Mm-hmm.
And improve your communications with your clients at all time. I think we need to keep in touch, call them, see how they're doing, and offer help and hear from them, because people need to be listened to, right? It's very, very important feedback. Review your budget and cut unnecessary expenses. Of course, I'm sure everyone at this moment cut anything that they don't really need. They're really holding on to every dollar they have so we can, get past this. And a short-term action plan and long-term goals. I don't know. I know we talked together about this, but I want you to talk as well. So maybe you have something else to say here.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with all of these recap points. A couple of things that I wanted to add in terms of, supply chain. In terms of lessons learned, I would say one of the big things is, and you mentioned this, Arnon, is focusing on supply chain resilience. So really, that's something that we're seeing more and more the importance of that. You mentioned you talked about planning, and definitely having that risk management strategy is more important than ever. I was listening to another webinar the other day that was talking about how we should be prepared to have a crisis every 5 years, whether it's a pandemic such as this one, or maybe another kind of crisis. But having that in mind, and that crisis preparedness in terms of specifically thinking about your supply chain is really, really important. And I think that goes hand in hand with also what you mentioned in terms of having that open, constant communication, not only with your clients, I would say with everyone from your supply chain point of contact. So whether that's your suppliers, your logistics providers, really, they may have some of the answers. They may have the most up-to-date information. So really important to be talking to all of the different points within that chain. So just wanted to highlight some of that.
Great. We have a comment from Paulo Lins, who said, I missed the construction industry in this chart, the chart we did. So I don't know if you have something to add in terms of the construction business in Canada. We know a few months or a month ago, there was some talks from the province that, constructions had to stop because of contamination of the workers and everything else. So I don't know if you have any insight on this, or we can send Paulo some information after the fact. But I don't know if you had any reports that people ever asked you about this particular industry.
Yeah, for sure. I think I can definitely send some more information afterwards. It's not a specific industry that we focus. It's not one of our priority sectors from within my team specifically. So happy to send some more information about that. It's definitely something that we've been keeping a close eye on, that construction, and then if we talk about construction, the real estate market here as well in Toronto, it's definitely something that, as I said, we're keeping a close eye on. I don't have anything else to add at the moment, but happy to find some more relevant information about that to whoever asked that comment or that
Great.
question, actually.
And we also, Leandro here says, could you please give us an idea about some opportunities in your point of view, talking about Canadian product or field to export? As we know, Canada exports technology in a large scale, medical and research equipment, telecommunication and mining. I'm sure, grains, to some markets, but I don't know if you have any any insight in terms of exports from Canada, I guess, basis question here.
Yeah, I think all of those sectors that you mentioned are very much very relevant and definitely where Canada is very strong at. I would highlight definitely the technology and innovation areas. So lots of interesting innovations there that I think makes Canada very strong. I think I would highlight specifically the clean tech and
Clean
fintech
tech.
areas here in Canada. It's very strong. I think those are going to continue to be to grow a lot. I would say that fintech is very much placed in one of those winner industries that's still going to grow a lot. Yeah, I would just highlight some of those. There was another one that I was going to mention, but I just slipped my mind right now.
That's okay.
But
You can send it to us after, and we can email everyone on our mailing list. We are past our time, so I
okay.
ask everyone to please fill out our survey so we can better the webinars. We have a series coming up, and in the end of May, we're going to have a whole series with the Trade Commissioner Office from the Canadian government in Brazil. They have different 5 offices, regional offices. So they're going to participate in this webinar talking about the Canada-Brazil relations. And anyway, I want to thank my guest speaker today, Nina Garcia from the Toronto Board of Trade. What an honor to have you today here with us. And thank you so much for all the insight you brought to everyone. And I hope to see you here again. And please come back and bring any news from the Board of Trade to us.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much, Arnon, for the invitation. It really was my pleasure. Time flew. I didn't even realize that it's
I
already been
know.
an hour. So
Yeah.
this was a real treat. Thank you so much.
No, I mean, my God, it was a treat for us to have you. So everyone, please remain here to fill up our questionnaire if you can. Give us your feedback. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who participated from all over the world. We have people from different countries here, so I'm very happy to see you all here. It's an honor to have you. I hope you remain safe and sound next to your family and friends, and we'll see you again on our next webinar. So Nina, all the best. Have a nice
Thank you
weekend,
so much.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye.